And we are live. What's up?
What's up?
Never seen you on this screen on this show.
Yep, it's my very first time joining with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Today we're on our fourth episode of Cartoonish Cartooncast. We talk about animated series and animated movies. I decided that we're gonna change things up around here every now and again.
All right.
All right, so I'm just waiting for some of our usual guests.
Okay, before I do that, I'm gonna put something in the private DMs about the new recent updates regarding Saber Spark. Do you know what's going on with Saber Spark now? If he is innocent or not?
Yeah, I've heard that apparently Saber Spark was framed by Brony Fandom.
And KP too.
Yeah. Yeah. Looks like Saber Spark was able to escape the allegations.
Gosh. This kind of reminds me of the false allegations around DLE and Pipster because those are fake because Jason decided to go and just fabricate and fake all of this evidence along with his trolls trying to go and make impersonated and underage accounts around Discord and on Gilded. He admitted that on a website that I don't want to say the name. It was back in January of 2023.
Yeah. Yeah. Although to be fair, not that I still don't think like Darren, Alex, Alexander, and Danny are innocent. They're not. Especially from what I heard about the production about the Rodfellows movie.
Yeah, I don't want to be reminded of that. In fact, DLE and Pipster do regret on making that movie because it's their mistakes after all. So they don't want to make that type of notorious movie again.
Yeah.
All right, they telling me about it on DMs.
All right. So yeah, I figured I'd change things up around here regarding the podcast. I'll try to do like 3 streams per month that are related to our show. Like I don't know how many I'm gonna be doing. Like maybe one talk episode to Cartoonish Cartooncast or somewhere in the mix.
Let's see. Speaking of KP, I actually did find a picture of her in a nutshell. Let me go and find it. It's kind of like, and you know what I said in that picture? She finally deserves karma after she really horribly poorly made that video.
Yeah, KP really screwed up hard.
Yep, let me go. Hold on, let me go and find it. Hold on.
I figured that would have been the case, and also because you're not really experienced with the show that we're going to be tackling today.
All right. Here's a screenshot that somebody made. It's by the name of KRIC 184. And I mean, I know there's also another person who was problematic who made by the same person, and that was Animer Free 20, aka the creator of Cartoon Media. I'm not going to go into detail, but what Matthew had done was seriously messed up towards his characters. But anyway, here's a screenshot of this one in particular. This is Karma.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope to God KP gets what she fucking deserves. It is disgusting. Matthew Littlemore has been canceled for so many years. I don't think Cartoon Mania 2 would happen. He is a disgrace.
Yeah, Matthew shouldn't have do that in the first place. Like, shouldn't made some like lewd images of his characters like this. What else is there? What else I was supposed to do? And yeah,
All right.
And the good thing I remember about going back to the hold on, give me a second. Let me go and do something. Hold on. Something knows this time, but anyway, I just want to clarify that it's a very good thing that Pipster and DLE did a very good right initiative to just cut ties with certain people who are problematic. These include two of them that are in 2023. These include Rosetta Head and Duncan Burton due to their problematic behavior. They got exposed by one person I had been associated with named Rumble Shadow.
Yeah. In other words, the Rodfellas community and Cartoon Mania were a mess.
By the way, to address your comment, John Wick, I don't think that Patrick Warburton would agree to be in Cartoon Mania, and because of how bad it is. Like, and bear in mind, Patrick Warburton has already been involved in some pretty bad stuff, like Happily Never After or The Wild.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is for sorry to interrupt, but the good thing is that the only good thing I do remember, in my opinion, where he was the voice of Kronk from the Angry Birds New Groove, and he's also the voice of Ian from Open Season.
Yeah. All right, now it's time to get to the main point of the stream for our fourth episode of Cartoonish Cartooncast, the only MLP generation that matters.
Yeah. And it's also one of the cartoons that that kicked off the revival era of animated cartoons in general after what happened in the 2000s decade, specifically the second half of the decade.
Yeah.
Let's see. I just want to clarify that. Sorry to interrupt, but the only thing I remember about My Little Pony was there is a Christmas directed video movie called It's a Very Mincy Christmas from 2005. That's the only one I remember, but the only one I remember in Generation 5 has to be My Little Pony Friends of His Magic on the Hub. And that really sparked to make the Brony fandom came to life.
Yeah. The other two cartoons, for the record, that kicked off the revival age for animated shows were Adventure Time and Regular Show.
Yeah, and it's called My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, a show that was created by Lauren Faust.
She previously worked at Cartoon Network with Craig McCracken on the Powerpuff Girls. You know, before Cartoon Network decided to take over and milk that show for all it's worth.
Yeah, of course, CN Real pretty much is what pretty much killed off the relationship between Craig McCracken and Lauren Faust, and since then they've been working on separate shows.
With Craig McCracken, he worked on Wander Over Yonder,
as well as Kid Cosmic. And for Lauren Faust, she had My Little Pony, as well as DC Superhero Girls.
Oh, not to mention that I wanted to clarify that she originally supposed to work on a Sony Pictures Animation project called Medusa, but due to the creative differences with Sony Animation, Frost decided to go and leave the project, and she will work on her husband for projects such as Wonder Over Yonder and Kid Cosmic from Netflix.
Yeah,
exactly. And like the reason why many projects ended up getting canceled by Sony was because of the 2014 Sony hack.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to blame the Emoji Movie for the reason why we never got the Popeye movie, even though there were reasons for why the Popeye movie from Jendy Chervakovsky was canceled.
But that's not entirely been the case.
Exactly. People need to stop blaming that movie for Popeye's cancellation.
And plus, if Popeye didn't get canceled, we would not have had Samurai Jack Season 5.
Speaking of Popeye, they also clued out on a matter that was got leaked in 2022, but because Sony decided to go and just wipe out of its existence just immediately.
Yep. And yeah, My Little Pony: Friendship and Magic, probably the most popular generation, as it not only was responsible for what we call the Brony fandom, but survived, but pretty much was the show that went on for the entirety of the 2010s.
Exactly. Like before this show even came out, cartoons were still very much in that rough spot, especially cartoons that star female characters, as they were considered as only something that girls should enjoy, and that boys act too girly for liking a girls show, and I'm using that in quotations.
I just want to clarify that I know that Hanna-Barbera used to be like boy-centric series, but it wasn't until 2021 where Jellystone came into the scene, and some of the characters that used to be boys, they changed their gender. These include Andy Dudley, Loopy the Loop, and also Jabberjaw, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of that, this show went on throughout the 2010s. And how popular was it? It had 9 seasons, 202. Wait, let me check how many episodes to remind myself. How many episodes did it have? MLP all
221. That's what I heard about the Wikipedia page.
Yeah. Like this show went on for like, to put it in perspective, this show by the time that this show ended, it was as old as SpongeBob was in 2008.
Yeah. With like how like yeah, it had like 9 seasons, 222 episodes, 1 theatrical movie, 2 TV specials, an entire spin-off which had 4 movies, 3 episodes, and of course, like 5 hour-long specials, which also included some shorts.
Wow.
As well as a bit of a G4.5 in the case of Pony Life, which we may not talk about all that much because most of us haven't seen that show, as well as a clip show series.
I mean, I do know of a certain reviewer who said that one episode is basically has Spike Chain doing a sexual pose even though he wasn't.
I wanted to clarify. There's so many people who were in the Brody fandom. These include users such as the Whistlenator, Saber Spark that I previously mentioned, the mysterious Mr. Enter of all people, considering that he made some reviews back then, and also I wanted to clarify that one of the actors, William Shatner, was also a Brony.
Yeah. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic was a very important show for the 2010s. And this show had some well-known voice actors, such as Tara Strong, who voiced Twilight Sparkle.
Mm-hmm.
We also had Tabitha, as well as Tabitha St. Germain as Rarity, Ashley Ball as both Rainbow Dash and Applejack, as well as Andrea Libman as Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy.
I remember the CM. I remember the CMC, the Cutie Mark characters, and one of the voices who actually played Sleep Bell from My Little Pony, she was previously voiced Tiny in Dinosaur Train.
I remember that show growing up when I was watching PBS Kids. I also remember her because she was the voice of Michelle from 3-2-1 Penguins, which anyone who's familiar with VeggieTales should know that show.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what else is there. Apple Bloom. Let's see. Yeah, that was actually Michelle. Michelle Krogber, whatever you call it. I forgot to say the name, but she's now a singer as of right now. Let's see. Going back to Tara Strong, the very first voice that I believe that she was voiced on as a voice actor had to be the voice of Ariel's daughter from Little Mermaid 2: Return of the Sea.
Yeah, Tara Strong voiced a lot of iconic characters. Raven from Teen Titans and Timmy Turner from the Fairly Odd Parents.
Which Fairly Odd Parents by that time was by the time that the show that MLPFIM came out, Fairly Odd Parents was right in the middle of its era where it was adding new characters to spice up the formula.
Like the baby or the dog and even that little girl.
Yeah, only for them to prove that this show was pretty much dying.
Yeah. Although we'll probably end up getting to that show at another time.
Yeah.
It was around. It was also around the same time where Butch Hartman decided to go in, decided to quit Nickelodeon, but it's not doing it in bad terms. It's just maybe because he was focused on other interests. Yeah. Even though that he got some controversy because of the whole Oaxis campaign that he had done for Christian values.
Nickelodeon seriously has bad luck when it comes to what happens to its shows. Like, it started from the Angry Beavers and it's still going on today.
Yeah. So
and then anyway, we also have Nickelodeon has been took the great action in terms of some people who are problematic, who were absolute problematic and weirdos / horrible people. These include Chris Afino, John Kay, and especially freaking Dan Schneider. I'm not going to go into detail. That was horribly messed up.
Don't forget Kyle A. Carosa, who basically worked at Nickelodeon on random cartoons,
as well as Bill Cosby, who worked on for Nick Jr. under the show Little Bill.
And even when these creators don't end up doing inappropriate things, they end up being just unlikable individuals as well. Such as the creator who worked on Cat Scratch, whom turned out to be extremely transphobic.
Yep. So now we can finally start with talking about MLP, starting with the very first season.
Yep.
The very first season of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
How with what they started on with, of course, Friendship is Magic, the two-parter. Season 1 and Season 3 were probably the only seasons to not end on a two-parter.
Exactly.
Season 1 was definitely where Lauren Faust had the... Seasons 1 and 2 were definitely the seasons that Lauren Faust was the most involved with the series.
And not to mention that Lauren Faust wanted to challenge for this girly nature around the toy line to create like more depth characters and settings for going on adventures, trying to go in suggestions over the EI content and even the market for their own toy line entirely.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that behind the scenes, Lauren Faust was actually trying to develop a different series entirely before it got rejected, but she got offered to do the fourth generation of MLP. I'd say that that was the best decision ever created.
Yeah, Season 1 is definitely the season where Twilight was in pretty much every episode, and back when she was a unicorn.
Yeah. Although as proven by Lesson Zero, she had to be in every episode to basically learn a friendship lesson before she ends up snapping in Lesson Zero, and the other characters could basically pitch in if they learn their own lesson.
Yeah. And of course, Season 1 definitely had its own charm. You could tell that this show wasn't really that big and grandiose. It was pretty much mostly a slice of life show with the occasional adventure spice. Like, putting aside the two-parters.
Yeah. It was definitely the introductory season of it was definitely the introductory season of the show. Although some people have argued and said that this season was definitely the show at its roughest. But I have seen, but to be fair, I have seen much worse first seasons of any animated show, and MLPFAM did not start off bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And then there's also some songs they featured during that time, especially at the gala from the first season.
Yeah, and then let's talk about a bit about the animation. This was back when the show had some several animation errors, which were starting to become very noticeable to the point where they become memes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like whereas the later seasons were able to keep a more consistent animation flow, where the animation is a lot more consistent and a lot less errors were happening.
Although admittedly, this series has some of the better flash animation that you'd see in any animated series. Like, this was it definitely showed that Lauren Faust did work on this show, because she and Craig McCracken did work on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which did have some very good animation. Whereas most other Flash cartoons that came out around the end of the 2000s decade definitely had a lot of problems to them.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, the Nut Shack.
Well, even though, speaking of Craig McCracken, even though he's not involved in that show, he was married to Lauren Faust, and they collaborated with projects. And there's also some people are speculating around that the show might be different if McCracken will become a co-director, suggesting some potential differences in style and humor, or even more slapstick or shifts in the voice acting industry.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Lauren Faust did work on this show and it does show, considering the fact that she also contributed to Powerpuff Girls, which definitely was a lot more violent than you'd expect from a show like this.
Yeah. This was also back when the characters were introduced and we were still getting established to their core values.
Uh-huh.
And every episode had to end with a lesson.
This is and the characters that we do get in this show are very distinct and memorable.
Yeah, we see that in the pilot as well as episodes in this season after this. It was definitely a season that was definitely not the season that took the most risks, but it was definitely the one that needed to exist because of the seasons in this series. It was definitely the one that needed to happen.
Hello.
Oh,
Hey, Razor.
What's up, Razor?
Not much. I finished.
You didn't see me.
uploading-
We're talking about the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, which is we're talking about season 1. So I'm
okay.
gonna ask you a little bit of a question that was My Little Pony related. Who's your character and who was your favorite episode in season 1?
Oh,
All right, my favorite character itself right now, as of currently rewatching the series, I've kind of grown to love Fluttershy a bit more.
Yeah, she's definitely my favorite of the main 6.
Exactly.
I remember.
Let's bring up some good episodes in season 1. Some of the best episodes of season 1 from what we can remember.
Definitely the earliest highlight from season 1 is Dragon Shy.
Yeah, basically the first time they showed an adventure story that isn't a two-parter, and we actually see Fluttershy actually have a character arc. Not to mention, we actually see her stand up to a dragon.
Mm-hmm. That was because a dragon basically decided to mess with her friends. Although that's completely understandable because they are Fluttershy's friends.
Yeah. Let's see, another well-known episode in season 1 was definitely Party of One, which up to that point we have seen this was definitely the darkest episode in season 1. Like with Pinkamena Diane Pie going fucking crazy.
Yeah, Pinkie Pie thinks that her friends don't want to spend time with her or throw any surprise parties for her with her anymore. But it turns out that it was a big misunderstanding. It got so crazy up to the point where she literally decided to talk to inanimate objects at a tea party.
Look at this Pinkamena Diane Pie and tell me that this won't be the nightmare for kids.
And it's very crazy to the point that
look at this.
Like that.
Local rockets for the exorcism.
Yeah, like that. Like I'm gonna tell you right now. This face is basically a nightmares, and it basically what I heard that inspired some really unusual and creepy stuff from what do you get from creepypastas.
Yep. And let's see, another season 1 hit was definitely Suited for Success, which was pretty much the quintessential. Hey, you can actually make a concept that's usually depicted as a stereotype for girls, and actually make it worthwhile and good. Like Suited for Success was definitely the episode that proved that My Little Pony can actually subvert tropes and subvert what its expectations and actually make something good out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to clarify before we take a look for the other stuff. Apparently, what I just heard, there was 2 people that were in the My Little Pony voice actors. The 2 of them used to be in another show that was from in the UK called Fat Dog Mendoza. And 2 of them named Mark Egerson and Kevin Limbar.
Yeah.
Both voices Fat Dog and Buddy. It's kind of ironic considering that Kevin Bar actually plays Trixie and the Queen from that show. And as for Mark, he voices Void Triac from the show.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. There's also the episode "A Dog and a Pony Show," which was basically the one of the highlight episodes for the movie. And not to mention either, it also shows that this show can do female empowerment without putting men down. I'm looking at you, Dragon Quest.
And also, Rarity's whining was fucking hilarious.
I remember the moment where
But I thought you wanted whining.
I remember the moment where Rainbow Dash actually forces Fluttershy to say yay. Like, I remember that Fluttershy say yay.
Yep.
Too loud.
Yeah. And there's another classic season 1 episode was the Cutie Mark Chronicles, which actually gives us the origin of how the main six got their cutie marks and how they all tied together.
Like Apple Bloom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sweet Belle.
Let's see.
Skitteroo, I believe.
All right. Another classic season 1 episode was definitely Fall Weather Friends, which was basically just watching Applejack and Rainbow Dash compete against each other. And on a certain episode in season 8, this was actually charming. And there's also, of course, Sonic Rainboom, which we all know why that episode's iconic.
Yeah, it has several iconic moments, such as the aforementioned moment where Rainbow Dash asks Fluttershy to cheer, and she goes all like, "Yay!" And there's also the ending where Fluttershy goes all like, "A Sonic Rainboom! She did it! She did it! Woohoo!" And you could really tell that it was basically Andrea Libman, because it sounded exactly like Pinkie Pie during that moment.
Yeah. There's also another episode that tended to be iconic for season 1, and that's The Best Night Ever, which is basically just the main six having the worst night of their lives. Although, depending if you find them watching the main six suffer funny, yeah. But it definitely gave Fluttershy another iconic Fluttershy moment.
Mm-hmm. She went insane trying to catch catch animals that were afraid of her for some reason. Even though Fluttershy is very good with animals.
Yeah. And also seeing Rarity stand up to Prince Blue Blood gave me some sweet, sweet catharsis.
Yep.
Although, because the first season won't always be perfect, and there's bound to be some duds at the start of the series. Let's look at some of the worst duds in season 1 that we can remember.
One of the worst ones that comes to mind is A Bird in the Hoof,
which was basically a Fluttershy torture episode with a very insulting ending.
Yeah. Apparently, the Phoenix was pretending to be sick, which constantly stressed out Fluttershy.
Not to mention that fake out death. Seriously, though, I hate these kinds of endings.
Like the trope in particular is very overdone. Like that they're not gonna kill off the character entirely.
I hate when that happens. Another season 1 dud was Owl's Well That Ends Well, as that episode started the infamous trend of bad Spike episodes.
Yeah, and it's also when has the premise of a certain character getting another animal that ends up being a problem ever worked out in any animated series?
Not to mention Twilight was at her most oblivious. Like, seriously though, try to reassure Spike that he is not being replaced.
And also the part where she basically interrupts Spike's sleep by putting a book in front of him was just honestly cruel. it's very obvious that the owl was basically messing with Spike, going all like where Spike went all like, I can't find the book, and she ended up finding the book anyways.
I just wanted to clarify that regarding those bad episodes with him and Spike, I know if people do like those episodes, I respect your opinion, along with respect ours. But this is kind of reminds me of those SpongeBob episodes where do you remember that one episode where SpongeBob being kind of cruel to Gary in the episode A Pal of Gary? That this episode.
That was just an awful episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another season.
There's so many bad SpongeBob episodes, in my opinion, like the Splinter. Ah.
Yeah, we talked about all the bad episodes in both our top 30 worst SpongeBob episodes and, of course, our first episode of this podcast series.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, another season 1 stinker was Ghostbusters, which Trixie may have been enjoyable, but everything else, nah. Especially when it introduced 2 annoying shitheads, Snips and Snails.
Yeah.
And not to mention how hypocritical everyone is in this episode. Oh yeah, oh sure, you try to show up a show off by being a bigger show off.
And I just wanted to clarify that Chris Savino actually did work in My Little Pony. And one of the people named J.M. Blue actually states that it was really effective his use on storytelling, considering that Chris Savino was one of the writers.
He wrote 2 episodes, and you wonder why he never worked in the show again. Thank God.
Honestly, it's a good thing that he stopped working on the show entirely.
Yeah. Unless another season 1 dud I can think of is Party of One. I'm sorry, I meant Look Before You Sleep. I meant to say that one. Look Before You Sleep was the dud.
All the episode was Applejack and Rarity arguing with each other.
Yeah, and with Twilight being oblivious, and all you do is want to scream, "Shut up!" Let's see. This one was very controversial. Feeling Pinky Keen and and Over a Barrel were pretty controversial for the time they were released. Like, if you remember the controversy that Feeling Pinky Keen caused around its message, that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, I think another one that another episode that is during that time was A Bird in the Huff.
Yeah, we already discussed that episode. It had a really awful ending.
Yeah, and like a lot of people, like I recall Feeling Pinky Keen having some controversy surrounding it upon release. Jeez. And it's one of those episodes where the writers, one of the writers of that episode actually apologized for it.
Man.
Dang.
What was the controversy that Over a Barrel had?
Let me remember. I do recall that there was some controversy surrounding Over a Barrel. Let me see.
And Over the Barrel, these include a conflict regarding ponies in the buffalo over land, with the ponies portrayed as saddlers and the buffalo as indigenous people.
Yeah, that episode. So it's safe to say season 1 was definitely a show where the season where the show was definitely getting established.
Right. What's called early installment weirdness.
Yeah, so it was excusable that the bad episodes would appear every now and again.
And then it got some people get criticism from the show due to lack of diversity and portraying stereotypes, particularly regarding Rainbow Dash.
Yeah. Speaking of controversy, the episode, the next season, season 2, one of its episodes actually had had controversy upon it because of the character Derpy Hooves.
Oh yeah, the one where soccer moms got mad about it, and they were almost about to censor Derpy.
And people really wanted to get Derpy back from the show.
Yeah, and I'm honestly glad that Derpy came back into the show instead of letting the soccer moms win here.
Yeah, a lot of the soccer moms thought that Derpy was being offensive, even though she really wasn't.
Yeah, you want to see what's offensive to people that want to see what's something that's actually offensive? Go watch music.
Yeah, and also, I'd argue that Jeffy from SML is far more insulting to on those with disabilities than Derpy Hooves is.
As well as the movie The Unbreakable Boy, which, mind you, had a scene where said disabled child actually says the R word about 50 times.
What?
From what I heard.
But
anyways, and no,
going
being
back
on the spectrum does not give you an R word.
Going back to what I'm talking about, there's another one that I got some controversy, which just talks about the episode Feeling Pinky King, where it debates regarding the portrayal of faith and science. And some people interpreted that as pro-faith, anti-science message, which has got significant backlash. However, there's other people defending that episode for its comedic elements, say that the intention was not to deteriorate science.
Yeah. And now it's time to get to season 2, which is actually better than season 1.
Exactly.
And I remember there was one episode that I had to get off my chest. It's one of my favorites. And two of them were really good my episodes that I do remember. One I remember was Teacher's Spike regarding, it's called The Secret of the Express.
Yeah, let's get to season 2. Season 2 was definitely, ever since Lesson 0, we start at the formula of Twilight appearing in every episode, and now we have the main 6 actually learning lessons, which was much needed for this show going forward.
And not to mention that the IRL content has been dropped in favor of that only TVY rating for ages 2 and up.
Yeah, there were some episodes. Yeah, season 2 definitely is where the characters started to become a lot more defined, as well. Aside from maybe one of them, which if you know one of my streams, you would know which one I felt the most negative towards in season 2.
Mm-hmm. And let me go with one of the clarifications before we begin. Can we go to one of my favorite episodes we're talking about? That's regarding Secret of the Express. It's about like Spike trying to go and get everything that he wants, and then he just basically grows into like a real dragon in particular. And then it just could not stop like stealing people's stuff. Like,
oh yeah, one of the earliest good Spike episodes.
Yeah. This episode was one of the better Spike episodes.
Yeah, season 2 definitely had some really good episodes. Let's knock a few of them out. The first one up is Hurricane Fluttershy.
Definitely the episode where we get even more development about how Fluttershy is as a character.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And yeah. And this show was proven that they can tackle emotional stories. Case in point, Sisterhood with Sisterhood Social.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And then
definitely
I'm sorry to interrupt. But there's an episode that I do remember, and it features one scene that it turns it into a meme, and that is the last round up, which is talks about like both Applejack and Pinkie Pie's like their own when Applejack gives a Pinkie promise and he just breaks it. And Pinkie says, "No one breaks a picky promise.
Yeah.
The episode also has a reference to I Love Lucy.
Yep. And the last roundup definitely showcased, actually tests this Applejack's element, as we actually see that she actually tries to provide for her town, which is why she leaves Ponyville, because she didn't want that blue ribbon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Now,
that's definitely one of Applejack's best episodes. And let's see, we're going back to Sisterhood Social, which tackled Rarity and Sweetie Belle's sister dynamic, as well as presenting one of the best morals in the show that tackles why sibling court is a give and take situation.
Yeah, the episode, could have been entirely unpleasant with Rarity acting completely unreasonable, but as soon as her sister ends up going to the event with Applejack, she ends up feeling regretful about what she did to Sweetie Belle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And during every time around season 2, people have concerns regarding season 2 episodes contain like some darker episodes, especially Do Princess Dream About Magic Sleep, explored the complex of guilt and mental health.
But that one's until season 5, and we'll get there.
But we're still on season 2 right now.
Let's see. Another great episode in season 2 was Read It and Weep, which might as well be this episode's allegory for bronies.
Yeah, and Daring Do is very much a reference to Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and this episode is both charming and welcoming.
Not to be confused with Rita Marie from the episode from Happy Tree Friends. It has a similar title.
Yeah, let's read it. There's also a Canterlot's Wedding, which introduced Queen Chrysalis, which proves that this show can be dark as fuck.
Yeah, another showcase of how dark that this show can get is Lesson 0.
Oh yeah, the Twilight goes insane. Like seriously, no.
No,
and then,
that is ironic.
I remember that creepy. I remember Twilight's creepy face. I remember Twilight's creepy face.
Not to mention, as we said before, this episode actually changed the direction of the show, which was more than welcome.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of these things, they include a lot of There's another episode that the episode that was actually from season 2 is called Fame and Misfortune.
That's from season 7.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. It's just sometimes when I was searching on Google, it's just a little couple messed up. But sorry.
Let's see another good episode in season 2 that we can think of.
There's Ponyville Confidential, which basically does the Krabby Chronicle from SpongeBob, but they do it a million times better.
Exactly, that episode succeeds where Krabby Chronicle failed.
Because this time they actually taught a very good lesson about not telling lies about other ponies publicly.
Yeah. I remember back in the day when I used to hate this episode, but upon rewatching it now, my thoughts on this episode are a lot more positive. Yes. There was also the return of Harmony, which introduced Discord.
Yeah. Although by the end of the episode, he's turned to stone, but and he doesn't return until season 3. But I do think that that he's good for his first couple of appearances. He didn't start going downhill until season 8 when he did what he did in the episode A Matter of Principles, which was a horrendous episode.
Oh, we'll be getting to how they butchered Discord in the last 2 seasons, and in the comics too. So, yeah, seriously though. So yeah, but of course there was also May the Best Pet Win. It was actually kind of fun to watch, actually. But yeah, season 2 is not to say that it didn't have any bad episodes. Some of them were worse than season 1's bad episodes when you stop and look at it.
Yeah, the episode The Mysterious Mare Duel has the other ponies be complete hypocrites, like all because Rainbow Dash was boasting.
Yeah, and it was a very and for a while this was my worst episode of the series, but upon rewatching it, it's not the worst episode in season 2. That would go to Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
No relation to the
The
gang.
one line. I don't act like other dragons. Oh, not even close. But why would you want to, Spike? Can be taken so many different ways. Like, you don't act like other boys, but why would you want to? You don't act like other girls, but why would you want to? You don't act like other black people, but why would you want to? You don't act like other white people, but why would you want to?
This episode is what I like to call misandry, the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, this episode portrays a harmful view on dragons, which all I can say is thank God for season 6's Gauntlet of Fire, and after that episode, we got a more positive portrayal of dragons.
Yeah, this episode portrays all dragons as frat boy stereotypes who are jerks to everyone, including other animals, when this portrayal doesn't even make any sense because there are male ponies in the show.
Oh, good God. Yeah, and let's see. Another bad episode in season 2 is A Friend Indeed, which I like to call if a Squidward torture was done in MLP.
Yeah, all this donkey wants is to be left alone.
Seriously though, and Pinkie Pie can't even take no for an answer. Like seriously, just replace SpongeBob with Pinkie Pie and Squidward with Cranky Doodle Donkey. Boom. There's no difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Like seriously though, and even though I love the Smile song, that's the best part of the episode, it goes downhill from there. Let's see.
Oh, there is also the episode Baby Cakes, which has one of the most disgusting sequences that you'll ever find in the show.
Oh yeah.
Russia banned My Little Pony due to its
Basically,
LGBTQ.
Mr. Cake puts a diaper in his mouth. Changes a diaper with his mouth.
That's disgusting.
Ew.
Not to mention, this episode contradicts what baby magic is supposed to do. Like seriously though, a baby Pegasus can carry a full-grown mare, despite the fact that Twilight had to and Spike had to be and Rarity had to be carried by both Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash.
That makes zero sense.
The only thing that's good about the episode is the moral. Definitely one of Pinkie Pie's worst outings in this season. And speaking of Pinkie Pie, we have, of course, the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000.
The episode constantly tortures Rainbow Dash, who just wants to get apple cider. Is that really too much to ask for her?
All it did it remind me is the fishbowl where Squidward wanted ice cream, but he was refused any. Like seriously though, and not to mention the plot also has very broken logic, because someone better tell Applejack's parents that maybe making a deal with the F Bros was a better option, because they've shown that they can't run their business in a good state because they're constantly running out, and to leave every pony in waiting lines.
Exactly. And the only thing worth noting about this episode is that whole joke of Applejack saying, "I didn't learn anything. I was right all along," which is exactly how I describe people like Diaz Station and Trolls Band Together fan 2001, as well as Fury of the Film fan.
Right.
Let's see. Another episode that wasn't very liked, but I actually liked this episode, and it's called Putting Your Hoof Down.
Like a certain mysterious cartoon reviewer said that this episode put him in depression for 2 days. Like, really? This episode?
If you get depression from watching a cartoon, I like to live in your world.
Yeah, like I really don't get why people hate this episode. Like, I actually like seeing aggressive Fluttershy in this show. In fact, I kind of wish we saw more of that. And I thought Iron Will was fun for his minutes of screen time. He was basically this show's version of Mr. T.
Yeah.
And also, I don't care. Seeing Fluttershy actually say some G-rated cuss words in this show to both Fluttershy, for both Rarity and Pinkie Pie, that was actually kind of golden.
Sure. That one sequence where Fluttershy basically insults Pinkie Pie and Rarity for their life purposes was going too far. But the thing is, Fluttershy is immediately struck with guilt after she did that.
Yeah, this is definitely an episode I call very overhated.
And plus, even if you really don't like this episode, there have been shows that have done this kind of episode much better. Take, for instance, The Words from the Amazing World of Gumball, which basically did the same thing with Darwin. Although the thing about that episode is that he was entirely encouraged by Gumball to say all those things.
As well as the abrasive side from SpongeBob.
Right.
Yeah, abrasive sponge was definitely hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Another season 2 episode I don't really like all that much. And 2 of these episodes I think are really overrated. Luna Eclipse and Mystery on the Friendship Express. Like, I explained why my problems with Mystery on the Friendship Express, which has probably one of the worst written mystery stories in the entire show. Like, so it's like how the mystery was this easy to solve, and despite the references being very fun to watch, aren't exactly in service of the episode. And in the case of Luna Eclipse, I might have liked it more, but Pinkie Pie found a way to ruin it.
Yeah.
But yeah, season 2 was definitely a notable step up from season 1. And it was definitely the last season where Lauren Faust had any involvement. As we move on to season 3, she was practically gone by that point.
Yeah, I actually heard that the reason as to why season 3 first of all was split was basically cut down to 13 episodes was because they were actually putting a lot more focus on the first Equestria Girls movie.
Yeah. And you can definitely tell this was definitely the transition from Lauren Faust to Megan McCarthy. As Megan McCarthy would be the new showrunner for the show, knowing the fact that she could actually work under Hasbro's rules, whereas Lauren Faust was a very creator-driven show.
Mm-hmm.
So Lauren Faust chose Megan McCarthy to pretty much take over the show, practically keeping her vision intact while can also work with Hasbro's ruling.
Yeah. Although why did Lauren step down from the show though?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna guess that reason because she just couldn't work with Hasbro's rules because Hasbro is a very toy company based show. All they care about is toys, selling toys as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that I think that's why the other generations of MLP ended up turning out so bad. Like they didn't care about the quality of the show in general, just as long as they can sell toys.
Yeah, and I think that's a big factor to why Lauren Fowles stepped down from the show. Is because you know, between Hasbro's vision and her vision, yeah, they practically struck beef with one another.
Yeah, it's a very good thing that the 1980s are over now because the 1980s was very toy driven.
Yeah, season 3 apparently people thought that season 3 was going to be the end of the show.
Well, obviously not. Considering the fact that shortly after the season ended, we ended up getting the first Equestria Girls movie, which
As well,
which I presume was why this season was cut in half.
Yeah, so let's talk about season 3. Definitely is probably the weakest of the pre-Starlight Glimmer era, or I guess the Hub era, whichever era you want to call it.
Yeah. Although the reason for why is because it was incredibly short.
And because it was short, the quality is starting to become more noticeable.
Exactly. One episode that I can say, that you can safely say that no one likes is One Bad Apple, which basically teaches a lesson to kids that you shouldn't go to an adult if someone is bullying you, which is just awful.
Yeah, I hate that episode. In fact, I actually hate it more than Mare-Duel. Yeah, another infamous episode in season 3 was probably Spike at Your Service. Although I actually think it's a guilty pleasure now.
Yeah, that episode has that episode has some very ironically hilarious moments. Like there's the whole Spike the Dragon Code thing, which is basically, I'm going to say it right now, a dragon credit card. They gave him a dragon credit card. They had the balls to give one of the greatest dragon characters of all time a dragon credit card. No, does not compute, does not say.
Yeah. And season 3 also had the episode that tried to do a tie-in story where two stories connect around the same time as each other with just for sidekicks and games ponies play.
Yeah, those two episodes were very uninteresting.
Yeah, especially games ponies play. Like with just for sidekicks, at least that episode had Angel Bunny of all characters.
Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, and now there were some highlights in season 3. One of them was Too Many Pinkie Pies.
Yeah, that episode was very fun.
Yeah, and also Twilight killing a bunch of Pinkies.
Yeah, there's also the whole Pinkie Pie's face turning into the previous generations, which I'm gonna say no, get that out of my face.
Yeah, yeah. Thank God that Pinkie was shot. Another good episode in season 3 was Sleepless in Ponyville, which started the Luna and CMC Dream trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And definitely a good first Scootaloo episode, which definitely started the Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo dynamic in this show, and would actually adopt them. Let's see. Another season 3 gem was probably season 3. Also had Magic Duel, which was the return of Trixie.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of who made a return this season, we also have Discord returning with Keep Calm and Flutter On.
Yeah, that episode had one moment where Fluttershy gets very impatient.
Yeah. And let's see, there was also Wonderbolt Academy where Rainbow Dash becomes a Wonderbolt. I love the moment where Rainbow Dash was threatening to leave with the Wonderbolts because they were promoting some very bad safety hazards. But yeah, there's not much to season 3 because season 3 has a very forgettable roster of episodes. But however, there was one episode this season. But however, there was the Crystal Empire, which was pretty dark as well. Like
Yeah,
the pony, we see King Summer fucking die.
Yeah, and there's also the nightmare sequence where Twilight imagines a scenario where imagines a scenario that is her biggest fear.
Yep, and yeah, but I don't think there was any episodes in season 3 that sparked probably the biggest interest out of all of us. That was the finale Magical Mystery Cure. And this episode was very, very divisive when it came out.
Yeah, although I heard that it was because people didn't like the songs very much.
No, it had to do with the fact that they introduced a very drastic change in the series. I like Twilight becoming an alicorn. A controversy that I personally don't agree with because I actually thought Twilight becoming an alicorn was a very good change for the series.
Exactly. Although I remember that particular controversy. I remember when Josh Scorcher decided to do a bit where he's pretending to get angry at this fact.
Yeah, even though Twilight becoming an alicorn actually pushed the series forward. And actually thought that it was actually earned. Yeah. Not to mention the songs were quite good, and I actually quite like this episode more now, especially knowing what it did for the series.
Yeah, just like with SpongeBob, if there's any moment where MLP would have ended before we were given the actual ending, like with the movie or the actual finale of the show, this would probably be where the show would have ended, and it would have turned out to be an absolute classic.
But unfortunately, that's not where it ended. As we finally got in 2013, the first Equestria Girls movie. Like if Twilight becoming an alicorn wasn't enough to set people off, this is B. Like, do you remember how much backlash the first Equestria Girls movie got upon announcement?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Mm-hmm. Like seriously though, the idea of ponies becoming humans was enough to set people off.
Exactly.
And once the movie turned out, yeah, it was no surprise that it was as divisive as it was. For me though, I actually have a soft spot for the first Equestria Girls movie, as it was the first thing I was ever introduced when watching MLP.
And plus it does and plus having an alternate universe where the characters are humans does make sense, considering the fact that outside of MLPFIM, there were other franchises that basically that could be considered as being for a female demographic that starred humans.
Apparently this was meant to cash in on Monster High. Yeah, the first
the one thing that does immediately come to mind with the Equestria Girls is why the characters are not in college or something. Because the characters that are at this school act exactly like their adult counterparts, and in the other universe, the characters are considered as adults.
yeah. Because I guess they wanted their version of the fall form. They wanted their version of the Great Galloping Gala. In this case, the fall formal.
Yeah, although I do know that colleges have proms or something, but yeah. Although like with the Cars franchise, the movies count on their own, not by their confusing premises.
Yeah. And the first movie was actually kind of fun for me to watch every now and again. Like, yeah, are there problems with the story? Oh, fuck yes. Like there's definitely plot points that don't make sense at all when you actually pay.
The one that came to mind was the reintroduction of Fluttershy, where she talked to Twilight normally. After she finds she talks to Twilight normally after she gets threatened, and then she starts acting shy suddenly. Even though in the actual first episode of the main series, she acted shy from the beginning until she saw Spike.
Yeah. And yeah. And I think we can all agree that the new characters didn't have a great introduction. Like, Flash was really bland, all things considered.
And also they basically decided to
I'm not against this series having love arcs, but man, Flash was just really bland, all things considered. Not enough to the point where I despised him like everyone else did. Like, they went as far as calling him a quote-unquote waifu stealer. Like, seriously though. And then there was Sunset, who had a really bad start as a villain.
Yeah. Just like with Starlight Glimmer and the main series, they basically decided to give her an incredibly rushed redemption in this movie.
Yeah, and well, I try not to compare the two because it's the equivalent of fighting with a Godzilla fan who tries to use Godzilla -1 to pretty much go on a rant on why the MonsterVerse sucks. Even though I think we can criticize MonsterVerse without Godzilla -1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like you can criticize King of the Monsters or the New Empire or Kong Skull Island without anything Japan made.
Mm-hmm.
I've always tried to judge them on their own. Yeah, and as a villain, Sunset was pretty much just the bully character that nobody likes to put up with.
Exactly.
Like, nobody likes to put up with bullies. Like, that's all we can say. And her plans were just fucking stupid. Like, seriously though, how the hell are you going to teleport an entire people in a school all the way through a dimension, through a mirror, and have everyone go over there slowly? You'd be dead. Because that Crystal Empire was just ready for you. But there are some good stuff in the first movie. Like, I like some of the songs, particularly helping Twilight win the crown.
And I do like how they designed the human version of each of these characters.
Yeah, they're actually pretty decent designs for the most part, and I think people have gotten the stick up their ass a little too long. Yeah, and Spike was actually really good in the first movie too.
Mm-hmm. They basically decided to turn the alternate universe version of him into a dog.
Yeah, but personally, that's not really an issue as long as they don't butcher his character.
Yeah, and they had him be in character in this movie.
So yeah, I don't think Spike being a dog is a problem. But seriously though, one of the shorts later on in the Rainbow Rock shorts, they apparently have the Diamond Dogs be humans. Yeah, the first movie is definitely a guilty pleasure for me, as there's definitely stuff that warrants me coming back to it every now and again.
And by the way, although if you are going to watch this one movie, I highly suggest watching through season 3 first, because the special immediately starts by with the events of season 3. Like, the season starts immediately after season 3.
Yeah, I actually watched this movie before I even watched the entire series. And barring a couple of episodes I remember back in 2016, I pretty much knew that Twilight was always an alicorn. So I guess that's why Magical Mystery Q didn't bother me as much as other people did. So yeah, the next season is season 4, often regarded as the best season of the entire series.
And for very good reason.
Yeah, season 4 had started up a new arc in the series, which is basically just the keys of friendship.
Exactly. Although even though this season also has the
Equestria Games.
Yeah.
Yeah, season 4 was definitely a very good season and has probably one of the best arcs in the entire series. Which proves that this show can do a season arc well.
But like every other season, this season also has some duds.
Yeah, the first one up is Rainbow Falls, which was basically an episode that's meant to be both part of the Keys arc and the Equestria Games arc.
Yeah, they also reuse shots and music from Wonderbolt's Academy.
And don't even get me started on the episode's writing. Holy shit, the episode was badly written. Like, contrived isn't even close to it. This episode actually shows some very serious continuity errors, especially towards their contempt towards Hurricane Fluttershy. And seriously though, the fact that this episode was meant to test Rainbow Dash's loyalty. Yeah. And what's worse is that this episode's unskippable. Like, it's one thing for it to be a bad episode, but to have a bad episode you're required to watch makes it worse.
Yeah.
Reveling.
Another bad episode in season 4 was Some Pony to Watch Over Me.
It had Applejack being extremely clingy, all because Apple Bloom was about to accidentally hurt herself, even though she said, as she keeps on saying throughout the episode, "I can take care of myself."
Yeah, that episode was really bad for Applejack's character. Another episode that was infamous in season 4 was definitely Philly Vanilli, which had Pinkie Pie at her worst.
Yeah, she constantly keeps on saying things to make Fluttershy break down.
And worst of all, Amy Keene Rogers actually received death threats for Pinkie Pie's betrayal in this episode.
Death threats. It was all a complete fucking waste of time. All of it.
Seriously though, what is wrong with you people? What makes you think it's okay to send death threats to a writer or really anyone who works on a show just because they made something you didn't like?
Yeah, it was all leading to this.
And trust me, this is not the last time that the Bronies fandom would pull death threats as their option.
Yeah.
Case in point, what happened to Jim Miller in season 9, and what happened to Misty's voice actor in G5.
Yeah.
Let us make it clear: death threats are never exactly, Mr. Chilbyon.
Mhm.
Yeah. Even an angry culture war pony would agree that death threats are never okay, even though he always does that anyway.
Mhm.
Let's see, another not very good episode in season 4 that we can recall.
Oh, I really did not like Castlemania. I found that episode to be extremely boring.
I remember being positive towards this episode when I first watched it, just because I like the idea of a creepy castle. But let's see, another season 4 episode that isn't all that well received. What I remember not liking episodes like Twilight Time and Simple Ways. Although, yeah. But overall, I think season 4 had more good episodes than bad. Let's start with, of course, the two-parter that pretty much introduced the arc with Princess Twilight Sparkle, as well as what ended the arc with Twilight's Kingdom. Yeah. Especially Twilight's Kingdom.
That episode was the show at its peak.
Yeah. Like, we actually see a Dragon Ball style fight in My Little Pony with Twilight Light and the Main Six versus T-Rex. And it actually gave a fitting end to Discord's redemption arc.
Yeah. It's too bad that season 9 reversed that.
Yeah. My God. Yeah, Discord got a great end, but sadly they would find a way to ruin it. But yeah, and it actually closed the arc in a very satisfying way.
Yeah, the episode also introduces some very memorable characters, such as Mod Pie.
Yeah, and also Twilight's Kingdom was also the introduction of T-Rex, probably the best villain in the series. Like, you have a guy who can be able to take all your power and drain all of it, and to become more powerful. And mind you that he was willing to double-cross Discord. But yeah, season 4 was definitely a very good season. Of course, this season had Mod Pie, which was the introduction of Mod Pie, of course.
Yeah, I like that they decided to give Mod Pie the personality where she's the exact opposite of Pinkie Pie, and I like that they made her extremely different from her other sisters.
Yeah, another season 4 classic was Pinkie Pride, which was basically has Weird Al.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the end of the show, it's implied that that Pinkie Pie had a child with Weird Al.
So, to quote Master 7, she fucked Weird Al.
I love that video.
Yeah. There was also Flight to the Finish, which addressed Scootaloo's disability, where she can't fly. And let's just say that watching that episode, I wanted to punch Diamond Tiara in the face. Like, she was willing to mock Scootaloo for her disability. Let's just say, if you mock someone for their disabilities, that's low. Let's see. Another good episode in season 4 that comes to mind is Testing 1 2 3, which I recall being the very first episode I've ever watched. Yeah.
I like the direction. I like the I like how creative that the other characters got with how Rainbow Dash was able to study.
Yeah. And if you and I actually recommend that one review from Employee a Million from a few years ago where he reviewed that episode. That's actually a pretty good review. There was also For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils, which furthers Rarity and Sweetie Belle's sister dynamic. And it's also another Luna and CMC Dream episode. Yeah. Another season 4 banger was Pinky Apple Pie, which was pretty much the episode that expanded the Apple family and teased the idea of Applejack and Pinkie Pie being related, which never really gets confirmed. And also, apples together, we're apples to the core. Yeah. Let's see. Another episode that was part of the Key arc was It Ain't Easy Being Breezy's, which was the episode that pushed Fluttershy's character forward in a direction that really benefited her character, as we actually see her being more assertive, as well as a moral that sometimes you have to be cruel in order to be kind.
Yeah, it was definitely the episode that we needed after what happened in Philly Vanilli.
Yeah. Let's see. Another episode in season 4 that's well remembered is Rarity Takes Manhattan, which was basically Rarity's key episode. And of course, season 4 definitely gave us Equestria Games, which a lot of people seem to hate, all because it didn't focus on the games and instead focused on Spike. But for us, I think them focusing on Spike was probably for the best, especially after Rainbow Falls. But yeah, that's pretty much the majority of season 4's best and worst episodes we can remember. And now we move on to Equestria Girls again in 2014 with Rainbow Rocks, the one everyone can agree is the best one in the QG spin-off series.
I haven't watched that one.
Oh, okay. But yeah, what's often regarded as the best one in the series, yeah, I think everyone can agree, and for good reason. As it introduced the best villains in the spin-off series with the Dazzlings. I won't try to spoil anything for you, because I'm trying not to spoil this one because you haven't seen it. And it has probably the best soundtrack in all of the spin-off. And how they handled Sunset was actually very good. But yeah, that's all I will say for Rainbow Rocks, so you don't get spoilers. But now we move on to season 5, probably the most base-breaking season of the entire series.
Yep. This is one of those introducing new characters seasons.
And it was definitely better handled than it was, say, of course, Fairly Odd Parents.
Right.
Yeah. I I can't pretty much any show can do much better than Fairly Odd Parents when it comes to that, except for Rugrats, which introduced Dill.
Yeah. Season 5 was definitely probably also the darkest season of the entire series. Let's the premiere alone already set the tone for holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The shit.
The first the two-parter first episode was definitely the darkest, one of the darkest. Oh. Oh, you're back.
All right. So yeah, the season 5 premiere was pretty damn dark. Probably the darkest episode of the entire series.
Yeah.
Yeah, as it was the season that introduced Starlight into the series. Yeah. Season 5, like, you never thought that that a show like My Little Pony would tackle cultism. And yeah, let's just say it's creepy as fuck that I think even adults will have nightmares of this episode. But yeah, season 5 definitely had some really good episodes. So let's see. The first one up is definitely Crusaders of the Lost Mark.
Basically the musical episode, and apparently this episode was basically made to celebrate the show's 5th year anniversary,
and a very good one at that. As we finally get a little bit of characterization from Diamond Tiara, it's a shame that they didn't use her after this episode. Like, seriously, we could have gotten one episode with her.
Yeah, apparently they decided not to use Diamond Tiara after this episode because of Hasbro.
Fuck. Yeah, and seeing the CMC finally get their marks was nothing sort of joyous. And you couldn't be any more happy for them that they finally got what they wanted since the start of the series. There's also, speaking of anniversary episodes, we have the 100th episode being Slice of Life.
Definitely the episode where the other background ponies are given more of a focus.
And a damn good one at that. It was nice to see an episode to not be in the main six's involvement, even if they do appear in this episode. This episode was fucking crazy. There was also Amending Fences, which is probably the best episode of the series for me.
Honestly, the episode was tear jerking. Like Twilight's old friend was devastated because because Twilight didn't spend much time with her, even though Twilight didn't really mean to push her friend to the side.
Yeah. And not to mention, it actually builds off some continuity from the series prior, from the first episode. And, of course, and this being M.A. Larson's final script in the series, not counting another episode, but we'll get to that. But, yeah, Amending Fences is truly fantastic. Let's see. Season 5 also had The Main Attraction, which is Applejack's best episode. Yeah, The Main Attraction was definitely Applejack's best episode. As we actually see her best qualities on full display.
Oh, there's also Scaremaster, which basically puts it gives the end of Fluttershy's arc.
Yeah. And for a Halloween and for a Nightmare Night episode, I would rather watch this over Luna Eclipsed. Because
I also love that one joke where Fluttershy goes all like, "Ooh, uninvited guests."
Yeah. Season 5 also had a pretty great episode with Thanks for the Memories, an episode that I distinctly remember watching back in the day. Yeah, it's basically Rainbow Dash tries to stop winter because her tortoise was about to hibernate. That episode gave us the first Rainbow Dash solo song, and it had another great Fluttershy moment where she makes Rainbow Dash cry. Their winter is going to be petless. And this episode is basically the 5 stages of grief. Season 5 also had Brotherhood Social, the episode that gave us a good look into Big Mac. Like, seriously though, I'm also glad as we see him and Apple Blue, and see him actually pretend to be a female, to be, being Orchard Blossom. And it was hilarious. Not to mention the way they end that episode. But let's see, another season 5 gem I can think of off the top of my head is probably Rarity Investigates. Probably another episode that on the list of noir-centered stories that actually work. And of course, the last one is The Lost Treasure of Griffinstone, which basically redeems Gilda.
Yeah. But yeah. This season, like the previous seasons, also has some bad episodes. One that immediately comes to mind as the worst of the season is Princess Spike.
Oh yeah, the episode that tries to blame Spike for literally just trying to do Twilight's job. Like, he gets punished for the things that he didn't even deserve, yet he doesn't get punished for the selfish things he does.
Yeah. Like all Spike wanted to do throughout the episode was make it to where Twilight gets some sleep.
Yeah, just another trend of bad Spike episodes, and another bad episode that's divisive, but I tend to hate it more, is Do Princesses Dream of Magic Sheep?
Oh yeah, the episode where that basically mishandles the concept of suicide.
Yeah, which might as well make SpongeBob's take on suicide look tasteful in comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which show tackled suicide worse, SpongeBob or MLP?
That's honestly a difficult choice to choose from.
I mean, I guess SpongeBob could be worse because they tackle suicide as a joke, while MLP tries to pass it off as a lesson. But yeah, this episode was actually good up until the ending. Another bad episode in season 5 was definitely Appaloosa's Most Wanted, or the episode that practically screwed up the concept of cutie marks. Like, seriously though. Like in this episode, Troubleshoes gets his cutie mark for something for pretty much being a klutz at the wrong time. And there's, of course, What About Discord, which might as well be one of the very bad Discord episodes, as he practically makes Twilight jealous. And because we're seeing it from Twilight's perspective, we don't actually see what happened with Discord and the rest of the main six. And yeah, season 5's bad episodes aren't as prevalent as some of the others, but like Force. But there's also the very controversial season 5 finale, which tends to be debated upon still, even to this day. Like
the finale, which basically gives a rush redemption to Starlight Glimmer.
Yeah, and while Starlight is a character that admittedly I would grow to like as the series went on, yeah, her redemption was very rough, especially in the next season.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, like
although at least it wasn't as poorly handled as what happened with Discord, but still.
Yeah, or Steven Universe. Plus, I can at least see her redemption and backstory actually working in some capacity. If either one or two things were changed, or at least see what we get after this episode, at least they bother to expand on it a little. which is better than nothing. Whereas Steven Universe, the Diamonds do not deserve redemption. Period. Like, hey, it can always be worse. But yeah, season 5 was a very good season, almost on par with 4 for having the very few bad episodes not be as prevalent. And unlike maybe season 4, aside from maybe To Princess's Dream of Magic Sheep, most of the bad episodes tend to be mostly forgettable and skippable in the long term. But yeah, season 6, definitely the first sign that this show was, not really going to plan. Season 6 was definitely the weakest season up until another season we'll talk about later. Season 6. What I think of season 6 is probably season 6 definitely where the bad episodes started to become a lot more noticeable. But let's start with some of season 6's bad episodes. Excuse me for a second while I go. I'll be right back. Sean, are you still here?
Sean?
Because, your mic is on mute right now. Anyways, I guess until Sean comes back, we'll have to wait a bit.
Okay.
So let's discuss something a little bit unrelated.
All right.
Fury, get the fuck out. Quit shaming us for being animation fans.
Mm-hmm. And
the
whole nonsense you posted, when I said it was laughable, how you described Predator, Killer of Killers, as art, but then you were previously shaming us for liking cartoons and being attracted to animated women. Being attracted to someone is natural. And so what if they're animated? It's normal for someone to have a fictional crush.
Fury thinks that we're, quote, cartoon fetish loving people, and thinks that adults shouldn't enjoy animated stuff meant for children.
The Avatar: The Last Airbender is a show for kids, and it deals with genocide in the third episode, technically, because the first 2 episodes are split in 2. But yeah, and it deals with other kinds of stuff like revisionist history, genocide, and all this other mature themes.
Also, Fury, we're talking about a show called My Little Pony. A show meant for children. So you can keep crying about it, Fury.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if the real reason Chris Stuckman broke ties with him was because he was insane.
Like Fury continues to be a toxic shithead, while Italian Savage practically got terminated.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God.
Indeed.
What was that?
Oh, that was a notification I got.
I got a nice ringtone to it.
Yeah, it was for this thing with Letterboxd. Someone left a comment on one of my reviews.
Okay.
That was all.
All right. Sean, are you still here?
Sean.
Let me see if I can be able to DM him on Discord, because in case he's like doing something right now.
Right.
I actually made a new channel on my Discord server. It's called Punishments and Torture for Media to Hate On.
All right. Right on.
But yeah, I think we should we just showcase. Oh, hello.
Hi, ordinary guy.
Hey there. How's it going, y'all?
Going good.
Good. Yeah. Currently, we were still currently in season 5
Season 5 of what?
of
Mile
MLP.
Oh, okay.
I'm back.
All right. So now we finished season 5. So I guess the next season is to tackle season 6.
Yeah.
This is definitely arguably the weakest season of the entire series up to that point. And this was where the bad episodes started to become a lot more noticeable.
I mean, there are still some good episodes this season, like The Gift of Mod Pie, which basically has us basically chilling in Manhattan with Mod Pie.
Yeah, season 6 was definitely the season that gave us some of the best Spike episodes, with both Gauntlet of Fire, which that episode managed to undo all the problems Dragon Quest did, as we actually got a positive portrayal of dragons.
And not to mention, we also got some female dragons, too.
Yeah, and it features Spike at his absolute best. But there was also the times they are a changeling, which managed to introduce the first good changeling in the entire series, with Thorax.
Mm-hmm. There's also Buckball season. There's also Buckball season.
Yeah, which actually made us like snails. In terms of other good episodes this season, there was a Heartwarming Tale, which was basically a Christmas Carol in My Little Pony.
And Dungeons in Discord, which basically has us taking a moment with some of the male characters and putting on a Dungeons and Dragons scenario.
I just wish that episode focused more on Dungeons and Dragons more. But yeah, a Heartwarming Tale was definitely a fantastic take on A Christmas Carol, and has some really good songs, especially with Pinky and Luna songs being absolute bangers. Another good episode in season 6 was definitely Stranger Than Fanfiction, which introduced Quibble Pants, who was voiced by Patton Oswalt.
Also, this episode feels very much like very much feels in vein with the fandom of something like Star Wars.
Yeah, and it was also a great way of tackling the concept of respecting people's opinion, and people liking things for their own reasons. I just wish actual people would learn that lesson today.
Yeah.
Cough, DS station.
Yeah. By the way, Mr. Chilbian brought this up earlier. Uh, 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 there's a lost episode of this show where a certain angry culture war pony stalks Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy over Pony Wars: The Last Alicorn.
Yeah. Stranger Than Fanfiction is definitely a highlight for season 6. Another one I can think of that's considered good is probably Viva Las Pegasus, which probably is the best Flim Flam episode of the show for me. Which actually had Applejack actually, working with them for once. And it also has Fluttershy too. And as we all know, Sassy Shy is best Fluttershy. But of course, there was another good episode, which was actually the season 6 finale with To Wear and Back Again. Definitely one of those finales that actually did something different by having characters who were previously villains at one point in the series actually save the day this time.
Yeah, this season finale was definitely much better than the season 5 finale.
It had pretty much every character at their best with Discord and Trixie, and especially Starlight, who at this point, this was definitely a much needed episode for her, especially to prove that she can actually be a likable character. And Queen Chrysalis is actually is still an entertaining villain, as always.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that's not to say this season didn't have bad episodes. This season had arguably the weakest premiere in the entire series, with the Crystalling, as this one introduced Flurry Heart. But yeah, the Crystalling basically tried to have two stories crammed in at once. One being about Starlight trying to reunite with Sunburst, and the other was the antics with Flurry Heart.
Also, there's the episode Applejack's Day Off, which is basically up there with which is basically on par with shuffleboarding from SpongeBob, and basically lying about what the premise of the episode is going to be.
What was the point of that episode? Season 6 was just not a good season for Applejack. There was also Where the Apple Lies, which basically had a liar revealed story. One of my most hated tropes, by the way. And this episode basically confirms why Big Mac is often as silent as he is, while also watching Applejack constantly lie while every pony is made stupid.
Also, while we're on the topic of Applejack, there's also the cart before the ponies, which is one of the most frustrating episodes of the show.
I remember when I first saw that episode, I actually screamed. Like, seriously though, we're watching the Big Sisters be arguably one of the stupidest we've ever seen in their entire lives, where they constantly try to take over the CMC, trying to build a cart.
Yeah, and the only part of the episode in which did get joy out of me with that episode was when the CMC decided to scream, "They're not your carts!"
Oh, by the way, can we also talk about this track? Like, seriously though, double eight that track they decided to use. Like seriously though, tell me that this doesn't scream lawsuit. Like, let me quickly get the picture up, because I can't stress how much this track really needs to be criticized. Like, oh, here it is. Explain to me what is wrong with this.
It looks... Can't put my finger on it.
Sean, you want to know what's wrong with this?
I don't know what's wrong with it.
It's almost a double figure eight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that doesn't scream lawsuit. Yeah, the Carpet Forned Opponents was a terrible episode. But there's also Newbie Dash, or as I like to call it, the episode that destroyed friendships. Like, you remember what happened with Josh Scorcher and Lily Orchard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the episode that practically broke their friendship. Another episode in season 6 I really disliked, although I'm probably in the minority, it's definitely No Second Prances. I remember being very negative towards that episode when I first saw it. This episode reintroduced Trixie again, and when I come back to this episode, coming back to it, I might talk about why this episode in particular bugged me. But I can say this: it made me hate pretty much every character in this episode. Let me say that. What's another bad episode in season 6 that comes to mind? Let's see. I remember people hating 28 Pranks Later. It basically opens with Rainbow Dash pranking Fluttershy. And it was basically the mysterious Mare duel all over again. Yeah. And even though I don't think this is a bad episode, I think it's a very good episode. One of the good episodes in season 6, coming back to it again, was definitely Flutter Brother, which introduced Zephyr Breeze. Let's see. Another season 6 episode that was worth remembering is definitely Every Little Thing She Does, which was basically a Starlight episode that was part of her arc. What other season 6 episodes can we also bring up? Oh yeah, On Your Marks, another bad episode in season 6, which was basically what I like to call, what was the plot in this episode? Because it has 3 plots and finish as soon as they end. Basically the Amazing Spider-Man 2 all over again. But yeah, season 6 was definitely the season where, even though the bad episodes started to become a lot more noticeable, it still had a semblance of quality control.
Yeah, something that wouldn't start becoming noticeable, really noticeable, until season 8 comes around.
Yeah, and the next season we can talk about is season 7, which actually had some of the better episodes than 6.
Yeah, I liked the episode All Bottled Up, which basically taught a lesson that you shouldn't just hold in your emotions, otherwise it would basically cloud up into something disastrous.
Yeah, that's definitely a great episode, and I think one that gets way too much hate. And for me, and not only, and by the way, this is Think Positive from regular show, but actually good.
Mm-hmm. There's also Rock Solid Friendship, which basically has Mod Pie becoming fed up with Pinkie Pie, and it's basically a misunderstanding where Pinkie Pie does where Mod Pie does like what Pinkie Pie is doing for her, but she thinks that it doesn't work out. But I like that in the ending, they decided to have Mod Pie stay in Ponyville, but only stay in this rock cave.
Yeah, and for the record, this episode is also a friend indeed done right.
Yeah, there's also Fluttershy Leans In, which basically has Fluttershy's arc of standing up for herself coming to an end.
Yep. But I think season 7 had 3 of the best episodes that this season could ever have. First of them is the obvious one, The Perfect Pair, which is the highest rated episode of the entire series. You remember The Perfect Pair?
Yeah, it was an absolutely beautiful one.
Yeah, like, you want to see how high the score of this episode is on IMDb?
How high is it?
9. Wait. It has a 9.5. It's the highest rated episode of the entire series. And for good reason. It was a true tearjerker that actually introduced Applejack's, that explains about Applejack's parents. And to this day, I still keep saying, if you didn't cry by the episode's end, you're not human to me. Another great episode in season 7, another fan favorite, is A Royal Problem, which gave us the Celestia and Luna episode of the for a while that we were desperately that desperately needs to happen. And it was definitely a great episode for Starlight as well, as this episode brought us Daybreaker. And of course, there's also Discord's best episode of the entire series, being Discord and Harmony, which was basically showed Discord at his best and shows the friendship that Fluttershy and Discord has evolved over time. Like, it's also the funniest episode of the series for me. Like, seriously though, there's so many gags that I actually laugh.
Yeah, and by the way, an interesting thing to point out with this season is that while this season was still airing, the movie was released. Like, by the time that the movie was released, 6 episodes released after the release of the movie, 5 or 6 episodes released after the movie. Even though usually for any animated series, they basically go on hiatus while the movie is still in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. Another good episode in season 7 is definitely Uncommon Bond, which is basically the harem episode of the series with Starlight, Sunburst, Maud, and Trixie. And it's definitely a great take in exploring that friendships don't always have to be where everyone has to be in common. And it was definitely a great episode for Starlight as well. Yeah, season 7 definitely handled Starlight a lot better than it was in season 6. Although, yeah, that's some actual good episodes. We also got Celestial Advice, which was the season premiere, which gave us the Celestia episode we've wanted for a while. Yeah, definitely. But of course, the bad episodes. What's up, right, dude? But yeah, season 7 was definitely, but like season 6, the bad episodes were also noticeable.
Yep. There's for instance, there's the episode Parental Guidance, which basically puts Rainbow Dash in the wrong for standing up for herself against her clingy parents.
Yeah, and the sad part is that I actually kind of like it as a guilty pleasure. Although, yeah, the moral is just flat out screwed.
Like if someone is being that clingy to you, you shouldn't just pretend like everything is okay.
Yeah. Another episode that was infamous in season 7 was easily Fame and Misfortune.
Oh yeah, the critic bashing episode.
Yeah, and if you know what happened during production of this episode, like if you know what happened with Emily Larson, you can tell that this episode was bitter. Like, Emily Larson, this wasn't even an episode that Emily Larson wanted to write, but DHX got his scrap script from season 5 that he threw away, only for it to become a season 7 episode. And wow, this episode was awful. Like seriously though, I hated every single second of that episode. This is why I can't stand critic bashing episodes in general.
Yeah, they're basically an admission that they're basically the shows in general basically saying to the audience that what you're saying is wrong because we're just fine the way that we are.
Yeah. This is why episodes like Teen Titans, most of what Teen Titans, this is why I blame Teen Titans Go for normalizing that trend.
I mean, things like this can work if you're basically using it to say you should take criticism, but you don't have to take any you don't have to take all pieces of criticism. Like OKKO, Let's Be Heroes did an episode like this, right? Which with the episode with that episode where the characters present their films. But if it's done wrong, you get things like Teen Titans Go bashing its critics.
As well as Fame and Misfortune, and arguably Little Yellow Book from SpongeBob. And thankfully though, this can be done right. Case in point, the Patrick Star Show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another season 7 dud was Secrets and Pies.
Basically, an episode where Pinkie Pie was right about Rainbow Dash throwing out all of her pies when this is not something that she should have been right about.
Not to mention, Rainbow Dash was arguably at one of her worst lights. Seriously though. Yeah, because apparently it's okay to lie to people. Let's see, another season 7 stinker for me was A Flurry of Emotions. It's made clear we're not the biggest fans of Flurry Heart.
Yeah, I gotta do something.
Head out?
Do something, and I'm planning to
Alright.
watch a movie that I rented later. So talk to you later.
All right. Yeah, A Flurry of Emotion, especially with the ending, which has arguably a pretty questionable moral because they try to play Twilight as in the wrong for actually disciplining Flurry Heart by yelling at her.
Yeah. There's also Honest Apple, which basically puts Applejack in the wrong for being honest about the other contestants in a fashion show.
Yeah, definitely one of both Rarity and Applejack's worst episodes on both counts. I can't stand an episode where apparently it's wrong to give your honest opinion on anything. Yeah. Another bad episode in season 7 was Daring Done, which might as well have been the start of the bad Daring Do episodes, or really just the episode that started the beginning of the end for Daring Do. Nothing in this episode makes sense whatsoever.
Oh, and this episode also has one of the most boring season finales ever.
Shadow Play.
Yes.
Oh my god. Yeah, Stygian, aka the Pony's Shadow, might be the worst villain in the series for me. You have a villain that does almost nothing of substance. Not to mention, it's nothing but constant lore dumps. Lore dumps that I don't think most people care about. Like, we don't come to watch the show for lore. We come to be entertained.
Yeah, the show did start off being more story driven than other episodic shows, but this episode was extremely boring.
Yeah,
here's something that really also I really need to point out. This episode was released after the MLP FIM movie, even though, in all honesty, they should have just, had all the episodes aired before the MLP movie was released in theaters.
yeah. And of course, the last season 7 dud we can think of is Triple Threat, which wasted an opportunity to have Ember and Thorax meet, only to have basically arguably Spike being at his dumbest yet. And of course, now we get to the MLP movie.
Yeah. A lot of people don't really like this movie because it's generic and all of that, but I'd argue and say that as long as a movie is enjoyable, it being boring does not matter. Like, the reason as to why I disliked movies like Rock Dog and Duck Duck Goose because they didn't really do anything. They didn't really do anything to save themselves from being generic and boring. Their generic content was basically part of the reason as to why those movies ended up being so bad. But the MLP movie is still enjoyable.
No, please don't make a live action MLP movie.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
The one thing that I will talk about, that I will say about this movie is that yes, it has a bad second act breakup, but there are far worse examples of second act breakups in animated movies.
Yeah, and the animation is actually quite good, actually. Like, I like how they use Toon Boom Harmony for it to make it look cinematic.
Yeah, a look that I would have loved to see come back for multiple of the franchise's movies. Thankfully, we did get this animation back during the events of Rainbow Road Trip, which I haven't watched yet.
Yeah, all I have to ask with Rainbow Road Trip is why was that special even made? But yeah, there's also and the characters. Well, I also wish the Storm King was in it more, and I just wish they cut Grubber out.
Yeah, they also downplayed Fluttershy's involvement in the story.
Yeah,
and they also revert her back. They also reverted her back to her seasons 1 and 2 self.
Yeah, definitely not a good look. Although to be fair, this was made sometime during season 4. So I'm willing to bet why certain things were the way they were. Tapper was a really good character with a really good song. And of course, there's of course Tempest Shadow.
Yeah, open up your eyes.
But how was she handled here?
I mean, she wasn't handled as bad as say Starlight Glimmer in the season 5 finale, because it's obvious that she's only doing all of this under the commands of the Storm King, and like the most that she did in the film was like beat up a fish monster.
Yeah, and the Storm King should have been in this movie a lot more. Like, he was meant to be the big bad, but otherwise, until I actually rewatch it, I remember my thoughts being very positive towards this movie. But yeah, and even in that, I would still call it one of the better 2017 animated movies.
Yeah, 2017 was really not a good year for animated films. Like, that year alone, we got the Emoji Movie, Surf's Up 2, Wave Mania, and Tom and Jerry, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, and now we get to the worst season of the entire series.
Season 8.
We're not even sugarcoating it. We fucking hate this season.
It's definitely the worst season of the entire series.
Let's start with the school concept. Look, I don't mind the idea of them exploring different kinds of races in the show and actually making them into a unity. Like uniting all the races in this show actually had some promise. The problem with the school is what it did to the series for us. Basically, with how every one of the mid-6 was characterized. Like, especially in the fact that the most of the mid-6 actually had life goals and passions they were working on, and now it's going to be interrupted because they're forced to teach a school to the next generation.
Exactly.
And not to mention, remember when Celeste said that friendships couldn't be explored in a book? Yeah. But yeah, season 8 was home to some of this show's very worst episodes.
Yes. The worst of them all to me is A Matter of Principles, which, to describe it best, this episode is basically MLPFIM's equivalent of Everyone Knows It's Bendy, or Imposter's Home for Make 'em Up Pals from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. It is beyond annoying, and it's also the most frustrating episode of the series.
Yeah, this episode is so bad that even people who don't even like Starlight as a character hated how she was treated in this episode. Let that sink in. When you can't even appease the people who your detractors, chances are you screwed up. This is probably the one time both Starlight detractors and Starlight fans can actually agree on something. I honestly believe that Lily Orchard would write this episode.
Oh, by the way, I need to mute myself.
But yeah, A Matter of Principles is a horseshit episode. That if I not to mention Discord was at its most sociopathic, most fucking cruel I have ever seen from him in any episode of the show. As he basically takes all the joy tormenting the students, all of this because, get this, he wasn't even chosen to be vice head mayor. Even though in what world would he have interest in being a vice head mayor? You are a figure of chaos. And if that's not the worst of it, we also have Discord literally make a fake friendship mission just because to send them away so he can be vice head mayor. Even though at some point the main six would have came back. And mind you, he sent Fluttershy there. You, jackass, sent Fluttershy to almost get killed.
Yeah.
I just ranted about A Matter of Principles.
Oh yeah. The episode is definitely my least favorite episode of the show.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. Another bad episode in season 8 is definitely the lowest rated episode of the series, with non-compete clause. Or as this, or basically called Fall Weather Friends if it was terrible. Look at this IMDb rating. Tell me.
That is pretty low.
And to me, it's very well deserved. Trust me. Non-complete clause is a pain to watch. As it basically just regresses Applejack and Rain Dash to season 1.
Yeah. Speaking of regressing characters back to their back to season 1 or something. There's also Yakety Sax, which basically undoes all of Pinkie Pie's development.
I like to call this episode if the writers of Caillou made an episode of this series. Pinkie Pie just annoys people, annoys every citizen, and with that stupid fucking Vitaphone throughout the entire runtime, and makes everyone's lives and it's just shown to be disrupting their lives. But as we all know, the main six are in the wrong for just trying to tell Pinkie Pinky to not without your Vitaphone. But of course, this episode instead decides to make Pinky in the right and actually rewards her for her annoying behavior. This and a
Yeah.
matter of principles have this problem. Although although the only reason why you would call a matter of principles worse is because that episode is also cruel too.
Exactly. There's also Father Knows Beast, which basically has Spike's quote unquote father coming over to command Spike around, only for it to reveal that he was an imposter.
Yeah, I really want Sludge to die for doing that. And we also have Spike breaking Twilight's heart. Which knowing that it was a fake father makes that scene more cruel than, actually sad.
Exactly.
Another bad episode in season 8 was definitely Road to Friendship. I like to remind you this scene literally has Starlight trade Trixie's wagon. Definitely probably the worst thing she's done post-redemption. We also have The End and Friend, another episode that felt like it was from season 1. But of course, there's also A Rock Hoof and a Hard Place, the other episode that tackled suicide in My Little Pony.
Yeah. Oh, there and also there's the mod couple, which basically has Pinkie Pie is another example of Pinkie Pie being out of character.
Yeah. And
She selfishly decides to move back to the rock farm because Mod Pie and Mudbriar were basically together or something.
Yeah. Let's see. Another season 8 dud that comes to mind is probably the Mean Six, which is arguably the most disposable thing Queen Chrysalis would ever do. Like, what was the point of this episode? Remove this episode, and nothing would have changed. However, season 8 isn't completely irredeemable, as there were some good episodes.
Yeah, I liked the episode Granny's Gone Wild.
Yeah. Another good, easily the best episode in season 8 for the majority was Sounds of Silence, which introduced the Kieran culture. And also, it has Rachel Bloom in it. We also got Best Gift Ever, which, if you want to call it a season 8 episode, it was basically the hour-long Christmas special. Another good episode in season 8. We got 2 good episodes with the Student 6, with What Lies Beneath and the Hearthwarming Club. Like, with the Hearthwarming Club, we actually learn about the Student 6's and, of course, their heritage's yearly traditions regarding Christmas. But Dallas' story practically won me over. And we also had, of course, What Lies Beneath, which explores the fears of the Student 6. Another good episode in season 8 was definitely the Parent Map, which actually succeeds where parental guidance failed. As we actually see both Starlight and Sunburst and their parents actually learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Parent Map was definitely another great season 8 episode. Another one of them that comes to mind is definitely Horseplay, which is basically Trollestia. But yeah, there's also the Breakup Breakdown, which explores both the boys with Discord, Spike, and Big Mac, as well as Sugar Bell and Big Mac's relationship. But yeah, And also Cozy Glow. Cozy Glow deserved, I don't care what people say, Cozy Glow deserved to be in Tartarus. But yeah, the bad episodes definitely outnumber the good ones in season 8 by a clear margin.
Yeah. This season was easily when the show started going through a bit of a seasonal rot phase, but which all of the other seasons, including seasons 5, 6, and 7, didn't even do. Like there were still signs that the show could put out good episodes in those seasons, but season 8 feels very it feels kind of tired at the same time, but also has some of the show's most infuriating episodes.
Yeah, like already the big three with non-compete clause, a matter of principles, and yakety sax being the worst offenders. But yeah, that just leaves us now with the last season of the entire series, season 9. It's better than 8. We can say that much. As this season finally gave us a seasonal arc. Which is basically just the Legion of Doom with Chrysalis, Cozy Glow, and Tyrek. And for the record, this arc was actually pretty well handled for the most part. We did get some good episodes, with the best one being Frenemies, which was basically a villains-only episode. We actually see the Legion of Doom actually work off each other, and it's beyond entertaining to watch. Season 8, 9 did have some good episodes, one of them being Sparkle 7, the 200th episode of the entire series. And yeah, and this episode features Spike's best moment in the series. And not to mention, this episode actually incorporates the ideas that some of the voice actors had for the series, and as such, they were actually kind of credited as the ones for the story. There's also the Big Mac question, which had the best way to end the Sugar Mac art trilogy. In a respectful note, that was unfortunately the last time we ever liked Discord as a character.
Yeah, we're about to get to that point.
Yeah. But another great episode in season 9 was definitely Student Council, which is basically an episode where none of the main 6 appear, and it basically works off a collection of side characters, particularly of people that Starlight was close to. Yeah. Another good episode in season 9 that comes to mind was definitely Between Dark and Dawn, which was basically a great Celestia and Luna episode. And of course, there was The Last Laugh, which was the return of Weird Al's cheese sandwich.
Yeah, to put it in Thadmaster 7's words again, after this season, during the final episode, we see Pinkie Pie and cheese sandwich with the kid, and in the words of Thadmaster 7, she fucked Weird Al.
Yep. And let's see, another good episode in season 9 was definitely Common Ground, which was the return of Quibble Pants. And we actually see him into a character as we explore his family life and him trying to win approval from his daughter. And oh, by the way, this episode has Patton Oswalt's family voice Clear Sky and Wind Rider here. I meant Clear Sky and the Patton Oswalt family. It has Clear Sky. Let me remember. I was I got to get it. Clear Sky and Wind Sprint were voiced by Patton Oswalt's wife and his child. I like Common Ground, and of course, there was the episode that ended the series on a great note with, of course, The Last Problem. Definitely a fantastic way to end the series, and a more deserved ending. And just for the record, Save MLP. Anyone who's still working at Save MLP, can you please shut up? Like, do you agree that the people at Save MLP are annoying as hell?
Oh yeah. They really do need to do that because the show has already ran its course. We don't need the show to run its course again.
Yeah, just accept that season 9 ended the show on a good note. If you didn't like how it ended, fine, but don't be a part of that Save MLP group. That's all we're saying.
Yeah. And plus, if the show were still going on, it would basically be like The Simpsons or SpongeBob.
Yeah. So ending it at 9 seasons was probably for the best.
Mm-hmm. Because if we did get season 10, that would have been a disaster.
Like as shown in the comics. But of course, season 9 still had some bad episodes, albeit not as bad as some of the episodes in 8 or weren't as noticeable, but they were still pretty bad episodes. There was Daring Doubt, which practically ruined the Daring Do storyline. Yeah, that episode was an awful way to end Daring Do's time on the show.
Oh, there's also the duology of bad episodes. 246 Great and A Trivial Pursuit,
which had both Twilight and Rainbow Dash at their worst. Yeah, like I actually hated Trivial Pursuit more because it characterized Twilight in a very awful light, while 246 Great. Mostly my hatred came in the middle portion of the episode. There was also Dragon Drop. Or the episode I like to call it. This episode's equivalent to Brony Child Predators. Which we have Rarity pretty much stalking Spike. This episode's beyond uncomfortable to watch, especially if you know what the Brony fandom has in store. If you're familiar with the Brony fandom, you would know the bad stuff that happened in that fandom, especially when it was only a year after Toon Critic Y2K was outed as a groomer.
Yeah, that's just gross.
Yeah. Let's see. Another season 9 episode that isn't really good. Let's see another one that comes to mind. Like, those 4 episodes in particular were especially bad for this season. Let's see. And of course, there's also how mixed we feel about the ending of the end. On the one hand, it's a fantastic finale and probably the most bombastic way they could have ended the series. As we finally see the Legion of Doom be put into action. And yes, they deserve to be turned to stone. On the other hand,
this episode, the episode gives us a MLP's version of the ending of Endgame.
Yup. And it was all fantastic. On the other hand, the Grogar twist really did ruin Discord's character. I mean, to be fair, he was already ruined after a matter of principles. This one seemed to put that fire on edge.
Exactly. They should have just had Grogar and Discord be 2 separate characters, not have Discord be revealed to have been Grogar.
Yeah. I honestly wish Grogar could have been voiced by J.K. Simmons. I really wanted him to voice a character in this series. J.K. Simmons would have been awesome as Grogar. And yeah, and knowing the MLP G5 and Season 10 comics, yeah, I don't think Discord will ever be redeemed after that. But yeah, that's as far as the duds in season 9 because they aren't as prevalent. Season 9 had more good episodes surrounding it, and it was definitely a good way to end the series. And honestly, The Last Problem was a nice way to wrap up the show. Too bad Equestria Girls never got a proper ending. EQG should have gotten a better ending than what they got. As the quality in the Equestria Girls movies and shorts definitely varied. Like for every Rainbow Rocks, Friendship Gangs, Forgotten Friendship, and Sunset's Backstreet Patch, there was also Mirror Magic. There was also Holidays Unwrapped. There was also Roller Coaster of Friendship and Spring Breakdown, especially Legend of Everfree. So the quality was definitely more varied in that department. And as far as the Clip Show series, as long as it ties in between the ending of The End and The Last Problem, fine. I guess there's not much to talk about there, since it only ever aired in Australia. And we never really have much to say about Party Life, so I think we can finally end on how we feel about this series.
Yeah, MLPFIM was definitely a change, a game changer for the animation industry because the 2000s, the second half of the 2000s really was really bad.
So yeah,
for cartoons.
Yeah. The quality of the series have mostly been inconsistent. Season 1 was definitely a nice note to start. Season 2 immediately improved the quality of the series. Season 3 was the weakest season of the show's earlier run, as it definitely showed a change and transition. Season 4 was easily the best one, while Season 5 definitely had the more iconic episodes. Season 6 was definitely the weakest at that point. Season 7 was definitely a mix in terms of quality. Season 8 was just the worst. And it definitely had a nice ending with Season 9.
Mm-hmm.
And how you feel about the show's changes? Like, if you prefer the more comfier vibe of the show's earlier seasons, you'll like it. Although the later seasons definitely had some of the best iconic best episodes up to now. And definitely showed that this show was definitely doing more than just being a show for girls.
And yeah, I can say that unlike Fairly Odd Parents, this show went out with dignity.
Yeah. And while the low points are definitely more recognizable, what this show achieved will never not be amazing. And it's definitely one of our favorite shows of the 2010s.
Mm-hmm. Admittedly, there are some shows that are a lot better, but but MLPFIM is still a high point for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we wait for shows like Regular Show and Gravity Falls much more than MLP. I would say MLP would definitely surpass Adventure Time, at least on that level, or Star Versus.
Yeah,
like Star Versus. Fuck you, Fury! Get out of here.
Is that actually Fury, or is it someone pretending to be him?
The Fury. It's definitely him. Get out of here. Ban user and delete their comment. Ban them. But anyways, while we definitely prefer shows like Regular Show or Gravity Falls as being better shows from the 2010s, we definitely take MLP over something like Star Versus, which ended on a horrible note.
Yeah. Heck, I'd even take OKKO Let's Be Heroes over Star Versus.
Yeah, we would take MLP over Miraculous. But yeah, for a show that definitely proved that it can be more than just a little show for girls, MLP was the biggest successor.
Mm-hmm.
And while Generation 5 didn't exactly impress us the same way, in fact, we'd argue to say that shit was short-lived. All right, what do you have to say left, Sean?
The MLPFIM was definitely a showcase that you can still like a show that is aimed towards females, but the show itself can also be aimed towards anyone of any age, no matter what their gender is.
Yeah, and hopefully people like Fury would actually learn that. And while the Brony fandom can definitely be vile at times, like alone it had people like Rebecca, it had people like Lily Orchard, as well as DS Station. They won't be remembered. No one's gonna remember those jerks, right?
Right. They're going
Yeah.
to remember individuals like the mysterious Mr. Enner and Josh Scorcher.
As well as other Brony content that proved that Bronies had a place in people's hearts. They're not going to remember people like Toon Critic Y2K, regardless of what he's done. So I think we can end it by saying goodbye, My Little Ponies. See you in Generation 6.
Yeah.
Thank you and good night.